There's a shocking new CNN investigation into Gaza cemeteries that have been desecrated by the IDF. At least 16 cemeteries have been destroyed, representing thousands of graves. Now, CNN has done an investigation into the IDF's rationale. They say that Hamas has a tunnel system under at least one cemetery, which justifies it being raised. Here's what happened when CNN took its camera team to investigate.
We're asking the general if we can actually see the shaft to the tunnel.
But the answer is no.
So?
There's all kinds of machinery which I don't want you to take pictures of. The security might force.
But what about if we don't film it? We just look with our eyes.
And then you might fall in. The whole thing can collapse. Or you have to walk to the edge. The edge is not secured. It can collapse. There's machinery, so on. It's not something I'm going to take a risk on.
Now, the Israeli military provided this drone footage of the alleged tunnel shafts, but the military reportedly did not provide CNN any evidence behind their claim that they found Hamas tunnel underneath the cemetery. You can see the CNN put together in their investigation that they used their own geolocated maps of the place where the tunnels were supposed to be, and they were clearly outside the bounds of the cemetery that had been desecrated.
Meanwhile, a dozen Israeli soldiers have stormed a Gaza hospital in the West Bank, allegedly disguised as doctors, nurses, and patients, and veiled women, reportedly killing 3 Palestinian militants.
So the CNN story is rather remarkable. The stories about the graves being desecrated has been covered widely online, on Al Jazeera, lots of discussion on social media for some time, but it hasn't really broken through until relatively recently. CNN did a piece on the cemeteries about a week ago. Was the first time I saw it breaking through, and now it seems that there was enough interest for them to do this follow-up story where you saw in that video, they take their camera teams, they go to one of the cemeteries and they say, well, what's going on here? Because the justification under international law, desecrating a cemetery is a war crime unless it is connected to some military objective. And when they followed up about the military objective, you heard the Israeli soldier there with the South African accent indicate that there were these tunnels. When asked if they could see the tunnels, they were denied an opportunity to do so. They were given a picture of the tunnels, which they could then use satellite imagery to locate, and that's how they discovered that the tunnels were not, in fact, within the cemetery, which, of course, raises questions about the objective of not just desecrating cemeteries, but all of these other buildings and institutions that are functions of public life that many are pointing to as evidence that this is an effort to permanently prevent a population from wanting to come back here. And that's what's being adjudicated in front of the ICJ.
Yeah, look, it seems a bit fishy, honestly, that they weren't going to show them this tunnel they supposedly found. They were eager to take reporters through tunnels in the past. I know there was, dispute over exactly where it connected to in the case of the hospital or whether it had been used recently, but there was some kind of tunnel and they were eager to show it off. So the fact that now they're like, no, there's machinery. I don't know what that means. They wouldn't even let them look at it. I know our viewers think I don't come to this subject with enough skepticism, but I have plenty of it. That sounds fishy to me.
Yeah. I mean, one other thing to note is that this is from CNN's reporting. They said that in other cases, the Israeli military appears to have used cemeteries as military outposts, erecting military infrastructure, seemingly maybe using the flat terrain as a staging ground for military exploits, which is obviously in violation of international law, and I think probably shocking to the conscience of many, even outside of a legal context. But the other I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Another kind of extraordinary story is catching on camera this IDF raid at a hospital in which members of the IDF are dressed in civilian clothing, one at least dressed as a woman, to infiltrate the hospital and kill these 3 militants. There's no dispute about the fact that the men killed were all 3 militants. There is some dispute about whether or not they're using the hospital as a hideout, as the IDF has claimed, or whether they're being treated there. One of I think 2 of the members were from one group and one was from another, but one did allege that he was being treated there, and the other 2 apparently were there.
Sure, but I mean,
alongside.
We're agreed, right, that if the militants are in the hospital, then that makes it a legitimate target, and it is better for them to go instead of just bombing the hospital or something, actually going in and specifically targeting the militants is the outcome we want.
Well, if the options are bombing a hospital full of sick, innocent people, women and children and the like, versus doing a targeted raid, I would agree that the latter is preferable. But there are also rules about engaging in warfare in those kind of hospital settings, and it also raises some questions about the ability to capture these people alive as opposed to doing a more of a targeted assassination. There was no crossfire, so this was not a gunfight. These were people that at least I think the Muslim, I don't want to misstate which group that these were belonging to.
Palestinian.
But one of the militant groups says we're being treated there as opposed to what Israel has been claiming, as it has in the past bombed any number of hospitals in Gaza, that they were being used as a hideout. And so the irony of you presenting that hypothetical is that it's not just a hypothetical. It is the rationale that's been presented as innumerable hospitals have been either destroyed or incapacitated over the course of over 3 months of war. And so it does raise some questions about, if this is possible, then why did we have those other instances, including a sniper attack through the window of a hospital, which did not kill a militant? Why were there so many hospitals that were bombed and incapacitated? And is this kind of behavior, dressing up in civilian clothing, et cetera, what are the implications of that, given that so much of what the IDF has said about why it's justified in shooting at people who present as civilians is because Hamas dresses up as civilians. Hamas is in civilian clothing. Hamas uses all of these tactics, which they say are in violation of war practice, and which justifies IDF's killings, which have been described in some cases as indiscriminate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess people can decide how they feel about it. I don't have any problem with them killing terrorists in this manner. In fact, I encourage it because it preserves human life. It's more, the reason they don't do it is because there's more risk, in theory, for the soldiers sent in case there would be a firefight. But I too have objected to the seemingly vast amount of bombing going on and the huge numbers of casualties. So more targeted raids that can take out terrorist fighters are, of course, better, as they plan try to figure out when this could ever possibly end.
All right, stick around. We have more Rising for you right after this.